Hi, my name is Benjamin, and this episode isn't actually an episode so much as it's a preview or a snippet of a conversation that I had with this YouTube celebrity girl writes what, who is an avowed anti-feminist and Canadian. Her and I chatted up about Evergreen and other topical conversations that are affecting the political discourse with regards to feminism, intersectionality, critical theory, critical race theory, and so on and so forth. So I hope you guys enjoy this, and if you do, then go ahead and check out our full conversation on her channel. The link is in the description, or perhaps up in that little corner if you guys happen to have that desktop computer system with a web browser that will be able to flash you that thing up there in that corner.
Because of the way identitarian politics works, it assigns sort of the oppressor-oppressed status based on things that don't change hands, like skin color and, you know, and sexuality and gender and all of these things, right? And so, and then they have other sort of sub-theories like epistemic privilege and problematization and standpoint theory and stuff like that, where they say, well, the slave in the relationship has epistemic privilege. They have a greater insight into how all of this works than the master does. But they have assigned master status to the whites, and now everybody else, all people of color, or to men and all women, right, or all non-men, right, they have epistemic privilege. They have the right to define how the system works. They have the right to be considered people who should be listened to. And they have the authority to disregard anything that that man or that white person says about his own, even about his own experience, right? Because we know better even than you what your motivations and intentions and all of those things are, because we are the slaves and you are the master, and you never needed to know any of that. We, for our survival, have always needed to not only know our own experiences intimately, but to know yours as well, so that we can navigate this world that has been constructed by you. And so essentially what you have is, because we've assigned it to not to things like money or political power, right? But to things like skin color and gender and sexuality. How do we know when the power has changed hands? We still need to, like, what if women one day gain the upper hand? How would we know, right? What's to stop them from saying, well, of course, we'd let you know. We would surely let you know, right? And we would certainly know, because we have epistemic privilege. We are still oppressed. You are still the oppressor. Right? And so essentially, and we guarantee you the moment we have the upper hand, we will absolutely fill you in, right?
I've never heard them say that, though.
But, well, I mean, this is what they could say.
Is that implicit?
It's implicit, right?
Okay.
They could say that, right?
That's
but
good to hear.
We have epistemic privilege, and with our epistemic privilege, we're telling you that hasn't happened yet. Right?
But in what realm does that operate? Does that operate in a chemistry lab? Does that operate when you're trying to build an iPhone? Does that operate in your bedroom?
It operates in this wonky freaking woo world of the humanities and interdisciplinary studies, and it's kind of got its hooks into communications and journalism and social media work, and every single faculty, every single department of a university where there isn't necessarily a right answer and all the other answers are incorrect. So when you got math, there's a right answer. 2 + 2 always equals 4. Every other answer is incorrect, right? And engineering, the bridge either stands or it falls down, right? Okay. But when it comes to questions like, is the death penalty something we should have, or, is abortion a moral act, or, morally acceptable, or, when it comes to questions of subjective experience.
The weird thing and the dangerous thing that's happening is that, like you said, like this stuff is taking root in ambiguous situations.
Yes.
And in complex, morally complex situations and matters. But how it's being implemented is that it is necessarily leaching complexity and leaching ambiguity out of these very complex issues.
Yes.
By imposing like this right and wrong thing on, you know, even language. I just saw in Toronto, or the Toronto School District has decided that the word chief is a microaggression, so they're not using the word chief anymore. But if you look at the etymological root of chief, it actually comes from like Old French or Latin, meaning the head.
Yeah,
right? So
it's the same word as chef.
Yeah, of chef. But because this word can be used or has been used derogatorily for Native American people during a certain time. I don't know if that's still used anymore. I mean, I see people calling each other chief in, like maybe on Lost, Sawyer uses that, just like, hey, chief, or whatever like that. It doesn't necessarily have a negative meaning. It can have a negative connotation, but they want to use that one word. It's weird and it's simplistic and it's very puerile to say that this word is evil. And we want to take evil out of the world, or like the word, and I'm using quotes, the word retarded.
Yeah.
Right? The word retarded is evil. So we want to take that word out because we know what evil is, and we're gonna dominate the language. But what's going to happen? The meaning of retarded is just going to switch to another word. You can't stop people from intending certain sorts of meanings, and they want to have a totalitarian control over what people can and cannot intend, and collapse the complexity of discourse. In such a way that it will freeze us in place. You will no longer be able to have one thing that they really lack is humor.
Yeah.
Being able to play with things and to not mean something but say it, and to release certain sorts of tension. And they're gonna fuck us all.
Oh, they're winding everybody up, and it's like when I have a friend here in Edmonton, Nick Redding, who. Mm-hmm. He actually ran for as a gag for city council a couple of years ago under the Patriarchy Party ticket. His platform was "We need more oppression of women," and and he actually got more than 100 votes. It was he came in dead last, but he got way more votes than we thought he was going to. And I think my parents were among those who, because they were in his ward, were among those who voted for him just because they found the whole thing amusing. One of his campaign promises was that by the time he got done reforming the domestic violence services in the province, there would be one bed in the province for men and a dirty dog blanket for women. Right, so you can see how over the top, and his pamphlets were, and he even had, a picture of him. He's got his head shaved bald, and he's got his fingers tented, and he's looking essentially like Dr. Evil, right?
Yeah, and Aleister Crowley.
Yeah, and so the whole thing was just this huge gag, but he actually, years before he did that, he put out a video called "Niggers, Faggots, and Retards." And it was all about the creeping of language and how he said, well, we used to call them Indians, and then that was deemed to be derogatory. So then we had to call them drunk Indians, right? Drunk Indians. That was, so we had to not call them Indians anymore because of the association with drunkenness, right?
Okay.
So,
all right.
So then we had to call them natives. So then people just started saying drunk natives, right? And then eventually it became First Nations, and then Aboriginal, and then Indigenous, right? And same with, he said with the evolution of the etymology of for mental disability. Goes from imbecile to moron to cretin to retarded to, to special.
Autistic now.
To special, and then by the time he started working with them, they were known as clients, right? Because he had worked with special needs individuals, right? So they went from being called retarded or retards to being called clients, but the stigma is still there. You're not getting rid of that. And the language will simply evolve to encompass those connotations, whether you like it or not, right?